Welcome back, everyone, to Onyx's Rambling Reviews. Probably the most anticipated movie of the year, and arguably, so far, the most hated upon movie of the year, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Yes, I was hoping to get this out last week. I am traveling a lot. I did not want to film and edit in one day. That would have been hell. I know this is a long video, and editing is at least double the length of the original cut from what I have experienced. So a 20-minute video, it usually takes me about 40 or so minutes to edit. I think. Somewhere in that range. That's how I generally see it. It might not be true. You don't care about all of this. You care about this movie. I hope. That's why you're here. No, Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. Probably one of my most anticipated movies of this year. If not my most anticipated movie of the year. It's arguably just a shoo-in for Best Picture, let's be real. It's Christopher Nolan. The Academy loves him. This movie was amazing. And anybody who is saying any shit about this movie before, I really hope you're eating your words now. Because this movie never bombed. There was no chance of this movie bombing like some people thought it was going to. Zero chance. We'll get into some of the controversies in a minute. There are some that I feel had some validity. And then there are others that I'm just like, you're just trying to find a reason to hate this. You know? Also, let's talk about the set for a minute. Technically not really related to this, but I have the video game Hades. It's one of the few, Greek mythos things I have around here. Really good video game. Check it out. Play it. I had fun with it. Odysseus is in Hades too. I have the less exciting popcorn bucket. I was not going to spend $75 on a horse. Also, I had no way to transport that, because when I originally saw this movie and when I bought that, I was in Texas. I don't live in Texas. I flew down to Texas to see this movie in 70mm IMAX. The best way to see this movie is 70mm IMAX. If you have the ability to get to one, do it and see it like that. If not, see it in IMAX at the very least. Even if it's a LIMAX, it's still better than standard, because standard, you're not seeing the whole picture. You're getting it cut. Because I did watch this movie again to take my notes. I wanted to experience this movie fully there for it without taking notes when I saw it in 70mm IMAX. Also, my theater has little tables that I can use that help me write when I do videos. I knew the 70mm IMAX wasn't going to have that, so that worked out for me. I saw it in RPX the second time, and it definitely was not the right screen size. It was not filling up the screen like it should have been, so there's that. Unfortunately. 70mm, oh, it's so pretty, it's so good. Also, let me say, usually, don't need that pen in here, usually, I will list out some of the main cast above the beginning of my notes for the movie. The cast for this movie is massive, full of huge names. Also, I was never going to be able to remember everybody's character name. I am not Greek. I'm going to do my best to pronounce them and remember them throughout this review, but I'm just like, yeah, we're just gonna pull this list up somewhere else. Also, I do have the book for the Iliad and the Odyssey. I have not read it. I plan to. I'm not sure which translation this is. That doesn't really matter right now. And I attempted to make a toga out of a sheet. There we go. That's what we got. Also, that horse, it's cool. It's the Trojan horse. I don't know how much popcorn it holds, and you, do it through the belly, and that's just real. I don't know how much popcorn it holds. If it holds enough, it's $75. I wasn't spending that much. I respect everybody who did, though. And I did consider it briefly, but I'm like, I don't think I can fit that in my luggage to get it home. And thus, we have this instead, because this is a little bit more squishable. So, let's talk about the cast, where some of the controversy does come into play. We'll get to that once we get to those cast members and their characters. Let's start with the big one. Odysseus, played by Matt Damon. I know there was some hesitation from some people about it being Matt Damon who is playing Odysseus. I'm not sure why people don't like Matt Damon. I try to avoid a lot of that kind of things on the air. I don't like to be influenced by things like that. I'm like, if the dude's a good actor, good on him. That's all I care about. Holy shit, man. He kills it. He is phenomenal as Odysseus. Look, if I hadn't seen Project Hail Mary, and that had come out in a different year, I would have said that Ryan Gosling was a shoo-in for Best Actor. That battle just became a lot harder for him. He's fabulous in Project Hail Mary. Matt Damon kills it in The Odyssey as Odysseus. Wow. Speaking of the actors, since most of them very American accents, and a lot of people were bothered by that, since when we think about ancient times, we always assume that they're gonna have weird British accents. Why? This is Greek. They should have Greek accents, which also, the Greek accents that they would have at that time are not what we would hear now from the Greeks in this day and age. It's probably very different. I didn't mind that they were Americanized to some extent. It's fine. Why did they have to have a British accent if it's, medieval times? Not all medieval times took place in England and that kind of accent. I really need to clean my glasses, but that has no effect on this. They're just very fuzzy. Damon, brilliant. Loved him. No notes, honestly. No notes. You have Robert Pattinson as Antinous. I'm going to butcher that, and I have to say his name a lot throughout the review. In my notes, I just called him Pattinson because I couldn't quite hear the name. He is named, and I just wasn't sure how to spell it either. So I'm like, I know who the actor is playing this character, and I'll be able to refer back to it at that point. That man is probably going to, if that man is not nominated for Best Supporting Actor, also, there's so many people who could be nominated for Best Supporting Actor in this movie. Like, for real. Probably the weakest of them all might have been Tom Holland, and that's the very, he's still great in that movie. I want to see Pattinson as a villain more often. Somebody else mentioned that in a review, I think, and they're just like, I like seeing Robert Pattinson as the villain. Yes, please. That man perfectly, embodies a villain. I love it. Everybody's phenomenal. I'm going to use that word a lot. Let's see, I wish I remember who Polybus was. Oh, that's Antinous' friend. He is there. I think he's mentioned by name once or twice. I never caught it in the movie, but that's on me. That is not on the writing or anything. He's a good... people that make me hate their characters because they act them so well. Pattinson and Corey Hawkins as Polybus. Again, I am so sorry to the Greek culture, to Greek mythos, to anything around that, general idea, and everything. I am so sorry for butchering all of these names. I'm doing my best here, though. Also, I really hope the toga isn't too offensive. It was the best thing I could come up with on short notice. No, Corey Hawkins as Polybus. Loved him. I don't remember who Leotis was in the movie. He's listed here. I think I might remember who he is. He doesn't have a huge role until I think the end, personally, if that is who I think it is. Let's see, I don't remember who. Well, you're probably not. Travis Scott is our bard who opens up the movie. He is the first one we see speaking, I believe. And he is starting to recount the tale of Troy and how that was won by Odysseus and Agamemnon. I am going to screw that one up because let's see if I can find it on here so I can attempt to pronounce it correctly. Agamemnon. I will do my best to continue to pronounce that correctly. Memnon is a little awkward to say for me. I'm so sorry for that. Tom Holland is Telemachus, Odysseus' son. Elliot Page is Sinon. This is one of the very controversial casting takes that people were getting all huffy and puffy about. Because Elliot Page is a trans man. He is. He used to be somebody else. Now he is Elliot Page. He gets is he the three or is it Lupita? Two of the big people that were getting trashed on for being cast in this movie. Him and Lupita. Let's see if I can find her on here so I can attempt to pronounce her last name. Nyong'o. God, I hope I'm pronouncing her name right too. I'm working on it, people. I am truly working on it. Those two. One of them had a total of 5 minutes screen time, and the other one was 2 or 3, and everybody's just hating on it because they're just black people didn't excuse me? Black people have always existed. Just because we don't see them in a lot of historical media, because people tend to place those films and stuff in places where there aren't a lot of black people at that time period, doesn't mean that, especially Greece, you're so close to Africa and the Middle East and everything. It's not surprising that you would have black people in Greece at that time. Honestly, let's be real. The trans they're always going to exist to some extent. It doesn't affect the character at all. So let's why do we care that Sinon was played by a trans actor? We don't. Elliot Page killed it in his short amount of screen time. Let's figure out. This is how long? Let's see if I can figure out how long this movie is. This is almost a 3-hour long movie. It's 8 minutes shy of it. Between these two people, it was maybe a total of 8 minutes of screen time. That is barely a percentage of this movie. I don't know why you're all up in arms about these people being in this movie. They were phenomenal. Everybody was phenomenal. That's my word of the day, I guess, is phenomenal. I haven't used that word to review. Yeah, I don't think. Anne Hathaway as Queen Penelope. I love Anne Hathaway. I gushed about her in Devil Wears Prada 2, if you can recall back to that one. If you watched that one, you don't have to, but I'd love it if you did. I love this woman, and I don't know if she was pregnant during she probably wasn't pregnant during the filming of this movie. She's pregnant now. Congratulations, Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway as our Queen Penelope. She has some moments where she, like, the emotion of, like, the frustration, annoyance, desperation for her husband to return. Oh, she nails it. She nails those emotions and portraying them. Some people were giving her crap about one of the trailers. It's just like, her face isn't moving because of all of the surgery. That's not for you to... No, go away. She was great. And honestly, the dress that she's wearing in one of the final scenes, oh, it looks so good on her. Oh, it looks so good on her. I love her. I love Anne Hathaway. Let's see here. Who else is important for me to note in here? Eumaeus. Eumaeus is legitimately very important to note here. He is played by John Leguizamo. Leguizamo? Yep, that's how I'm pronouncing that. Leguizamo. I apologize for the mispronunciation, probably. Eumaeus, he is blind in one eye. I'm not sure how blind he is in the other eye, but it's very clear one eye is, like, fully blind. He is Odysseus's swineherder and his most loyal servant. I love this man. He is a very sweet old man, very caring. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor. So many people could be nominated for Best Supporting Actor in this movie, across the board. Mia Goth as Melantho. I have opinions on her character, not on her, but on her character. I don't like her character. She is one of Queen Penelope's servants, slave girls. I don't know if she's a slave or a servant, something like that. It's like, I feel like it's a little higher level of just being than the slaves, and she's just nice. It feels like she is more there as a servant. It's just an elevated form. I don't know how to get into the specifics of all this. We'll get into her in a bit. Let's see. Ryan Hurst as Mentor. That is the character's name. Mentor. Okay, sure. I guess he's the guy who essentially trains Telemachus throughout his youth, since Odysseus leaves when Telemachus is like 2. I don't know how old Telemachus is when Odysseus leaves to go fight in the Trojan War. It's not the Trojan War. Is it? Well, it's to go fight Troy to get Helen back. We have 2 people who played a dog, Argus. Poor puppy. That is a very loyal dog. We'll get into that in the review. I love the dog. I don't remember who that is. Oh, that might be... Okay, so there is an older servant woman. I believe this is her, played by Kate Fugler. Euryclea? Yeah, I think that's her. She's one of the people who is still loyal to Odysseus and Queen Penelope and has not been corrupted by all the suitors that are in Odysseus's home trying to win over Queen Penelope these days. Benny Safdie as Agamemnon. You don't see Agamemnon without his helmet on throughout most of the movie, and he doesn't really speak much until one specific scene, so I can't really comment on his performance at all. He does pose a very intimidating figure, though. They did a good job there. Eurylochus, that's how you pronounce that, is Hamish Patel? From what I gather, he is the second in command to Odysseus once they are on the boats. He seems to be Odysseus' right-hand man when they are sailing, trying to get home, and all that. Again, I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, see, he did a great job, but there are others who I think were... I'm not going to get into it. Everybody could be nominated, in my opinion. Everybody. There are a lot of names here who I wish I could remember who they were in the movie. Like, if they were an important character, honestly. Because some of them I think they are just named as, and they're just more crew members, and that's probably who some of these people are. You have Charlize Theron as Calypso. I know Calypso from Pirates of the Caribbean. Different form of Calypso, I believe. This one is a nymph, the daughter of the Titan Atlas. We'll get into her. Zendaya is Athena. Okay, I love Zendaya. She is a gorgeous, gorgeous woman. I really think this role could have been played by any gorgeous woman. I have no problem that it was Zendaya playing Athena. I also just don't know how to put this into words. You see, Zendaya, fabulous actress. She just doesn't have a lot to do. She's mostly just there to be, it's not really an anchor because she's a goddess. She's a goddess. And sometimes I'm like, is he actually seeing Athena or is he just like imagining when Odysseus is talking with her? I'm like, I don't know if he's just imagining things. This man has been through a lot, so I wouldn't be surprised if he started imagining that he is speaking to a goddess. He's just like, okay, I just things are going on. She's fine though. John Bernthal, I love this man. I love this man. He plays Menelaus. He is, I believe he is the brother of Agamemnon. He is the one who is married to Helen of Troy. I just love John Bernthal. He's not in the movie a lot either. Some of these people who are like huge names, they're only in the movie for a little bit. Still loved him though. Bill Irwin plays the Cyclops. We'll get into the Cyclops. I have some notes there, personally. Lupita Nyong'o is Helen or Clytemnestra. Clytemnestra, I believe, is Agamemnon's wife, and also Helen's twin sister. Again, they barely have, like, really any screen time. When they are on screen, I love them. I say them because it's, like, two different women, but it's played by the same woman. I love her. She is gorgeous. Yes. Samantha Morton is Cersei. She is an important character. And she also has one of the creepiest, I was gonna say scenes, but I'm gonna say, segments of this movie. And I have notes on that as well. I have lots of notes. Since I saw this movie already, I was able to focus on taking notes. This is probably the most notes I've ever taken for a movie. That's why this is gonna be long. Plus, all of this going into it. That's mostly everybody who I have listed here. That is incredibly important, I feel. I could start listing more people, but I am not sure of their... I think I listed everybody who I feel is, like, super important. Everett was great. Let's close this up, and let's talk about a few of the other controversies around this movie. At least one in particular that I can remember at this time, and that is the design of the armor. I know a lot of people were trashing on it and being like, it looks like it's just, like, the Dark Knight kind of suit. And then there were some people who were like, yeah, back then it is possible to have gotten that blackened bronze look from metal. They did for Agamemnon's armor to make him more imposing as he is the leader of the armies and all that. I don't think it looked bad. I don't think anything looked that bad, honestly. I didn't really have any issues with the way any of the outfits look. There is one, but we'll get into it. I do question something at one point, but nothing is egregious. Are there any other controversies? Probably. I mean, okay, so here's the thing. A lot of people were trashing on this movie for being too woke with the casting. A few years back, we had Oppenheimer. People were trashing on that for being too white. We're never gonna win. It's either too white or it's... You put even one person of color in a movie and then it's too woke, you're not gonna find a good balance. Let's be real. We can't win, no matter what we do. If you don't want to see these people acting because you don't like their color of skin tone, don't go see them acting. Simple as that. But also definitely go see this in IMAX or especially 70mm IMAX. Peak viewing experience. So good. Okay, let's get into the actual meat of this review, which, let's see, where's the end of it? That is, I don't know how many pages. That is a thick review right there for me. And in case you're all wondering what I rated this movie, which I normally state it by this point, 5 stars. Easily a 5-star movie. And upon my rewatch, I did decide I like it, so it even got the like on my letterbox. And as I said, I am very particular with those. Shall we get into it now? I think we're all ready for this. I hope we're all ready for this. I don't know if we're all ready for this, but we're going to be. Spoiler alert. Let's get into it. We start with a bard recounting the tale of Troy. The Trojans finding the horse, making it look like it has washed up upon the beach. Like, part of it is, like, buried in the sand, and apparently men are, like, drowning in there. And they've been in there for, the men, Odysseus and his men, been in there for, like, 3 days before the Trojans show up. And Sinon, he thinks that all his people just left and went home. They just left him there to gift the horse to the Trojans. That's where Sinon dies. He is not immediately killed by the Trojans. He is shot a couple of times, but he also lets them know that this is a gift for Athena, because they have a temple to Athena in Troy. So the horse is a gift to her, and it's a way to end the war, per se. It's like kind of like, hey, we're done. They're not, but that's what's implied with the gift. Sinon is shot a few times. I think he's just left there to bleed out. He's not immediately killed because they're like, it's a gift. We don't kill the messenger for this one. But he's already been shot like three, maybe 4 times. They're not gonna heal him. He's the enemy. So I think they just leave him there and he dies. The Trojans accept the gift and they drag it home. The bard is going on. Queen Penelope, comes out from behind her screen where she watches all of these men eat and feast in her palace. Which, there's some cultural significance going on there that I probably don't understand. I think from back then. She does not want to hear this tale anymore. She does not want to hear the story, the song of Odysseus and Trojan. And all the men who are eating and feasting, besides like the ones who are beggars, are suitors for the queen. They are all trying to win her hand in marriage. It's been like 20 years since anybody last saw Odysseus alive. Well, no, it's been like 10 years since anybody last saw him alive. Anybody that could speak to the queen has seen him alive. 10 years? Yeah, something like that. 10 years, I think. Because 10 years, they were gone for like 10 years for the war. And people, like, knew about, like, 10 years, he was gone for the war. It's another 10 years for him to get home. 3 of which are with his men, 7 of which are spent on an island with Calypso. Telemachus. I call him Tem. And then I realized it's Telemachus, and I changed that in my notes. I have some weird names for people in here. Telemachus does not like these suitors. They are, let's be real, they're all assholes. But the leaders of the assholes are Robert Pattinson's character of, I've already forgotten the character's name, so I'm gonna pull that back up. Antinous and Polybus. I do think that Antinous is, okay, I say Pattinson is fabulous, and let's be real, Robert Pattinson is fabulous. We find out that Antinous did know Odysseus, because he and Telemachus have this thing, and Telemachus is just like, says something about not knowing his dad and shouldn't speak to it, and Antinous is just like, but I did know your dad. And this is all happening when Telemachus is bringing in a beggar because Zeus's law, which is essentially treat others how you'd want to be treated, or because there is a chance that one of these beggars could be a god or a goddess in disguise. And if we know anything about the Greek gods and the goddesses, they are very vengeful, very vain, and they will strike you down. You piss them off and they will retaliate. Telemachus is bringing in this beggar, and Antinous is just like, we don't need more beggars here. Just let him shoo. Get him out of here. Telemachus is just like, no, but Zeus's law. He could be a god in disguise. Conveniently, as he's saying this, there is a thunder strike right above. And it's just like, well, that was really convenient thunder for me, because Antinous and Polybus are just like, okay, we're gonna step away. It does freak him out a little bit. The beggar is not a god in disguise. He's just a beggar. And he's surprised to learn that Odysseus didn't make it home, or hasn't returned home. Because he is also a veteran of the Trojan War. And he made it home. Now Telemachus is getting some sword training, like sword fighting training. And we learn from, I really need to remember these names. Eumaeus. He is the one training, he's not really training. Mentor is the one, like, fighting and sort of training. And Eumaeus is also there, and while he's blind, he has very good hearing. And he's like, you're going too, is it too slow or too fast? One of those two. Very different things, but the idea is kind of still the same. And he has this dog. It's a very old dog. And we get the backstory of the dog. We flash back to when the puppy, Argus, is a puppy. And Eumaeus is just throwing dogs off a cliff for some reason. I don't actually know why he's throwing dogs off a cliff. Please don't throw dogs off cliffs. That is... no. And Odysseus comes up and he takes the dog. He's like, yeah, he'll be my hunting dog. And the puppy becomes his hunting dog. We see a scene of Odysseus hunting. He sees something and he plucks his bow, makes like a twang sound. It's not quite a twang, it's more of it's pretty sounding. But it alerts his prey that he is there. And he shoots it. It's a wild boar. He shoots it. It still runs and it like stabs the other end of the arrow into Odysseus's leg. So he's getting stitched up, and now he has a scar on his leg. That is important. Hydrate, people. Especially if you're in an area where you're kind of covered in smoke. We're struggling with that here. It's not as bad as it is in some places where I am, but it's not great either. And then we also learn how once Agamemnon is now, I was gonna say recruiting, but he is just collecting people for his army to get Helen back. Think about, remember in Mulan when the emperor is just like, okay, well, you're gonna go fight in the war, and Mulan takes her dad's place. It's kind of similar to that, where it's just like, yep, you're going. But instead of that, in this situation, because a lot of fathers didn't want to lose their boys to war, Odysseus made a lottery for the boys to see who goes to war with them or not. And it's implied that Antinous wanted to go to war. Odysseus had him stay behind and had Sinon go in his stead. And that is a whole thing that I need to learn more about, because I'm very interested in that, because there are times where I'm like, is he doing... Because there are times when it looks like Antinous is kind of a coward when it comes to fighting. So I'm like, did he actually try to take his place or something? I'm not sure. Either way, Antinous is not the one who goes to war. It is Sinon who goes. We learn that this dog refuses to die until his master returns. Good pupper. Love that. Very loyal dog. The queen is weaving Telemachus's grandfather's burial shroud. So that's what she's doing behind her screen most of the time. There are threats of people from the sea. We never learn what we do, not until like the end of the movie, who the people from the sea are. They're just referred to as the people from the sea. Nobody knows who they are. And in another flashback, Odysseus asks Penelope to remarry if absolutely necessary. She doesn't want to do that. She'd rather he just come home to her. We also learn that Agamemnon sacrifices his own daughter for wind. For good weather, my guy. I understand that the gods are like, yep, that's a valid sacrifice, and it worked for him, but like, did it have to be your daughter? That comes into play later. Penelope, in this flashback, suggests running away to avoid being recruited for this war, drafted, something like that, whatever the term you want to use is. And they're just like, we can just, at like dawn or in the night, we'll just take your fastest ship with your best crew and we'll sail west chasing the escaping sun. And he's just like, we can't, Agamemnon will rain hell down upon Ithaca if we do that, and Troy. So he goes, and Penelope refuses to promise to remarry. She gives Odysseus her Athena pin that she wears right here. It's probably about yay tall, gold. It's Athena wrapped in vines. It's a very pretty pin. Odysseus says that Telemachus could take the throne. Telemachus says that he could take the throne because all this flashback is after Telemachus asks Penelope why she hasn't remarried or something like that. I forgot to put that note in. He's just like, well, I could take the throne. Her response is to go get this bow that's hanging above a little water spout in the wall. It is unstrung, and she requests that he string it. It is a bow that has only ever been able to be strung by Odysseus. No one else has managed to do it. Keep that in mind for later. That is actually very important. Apparently this is like a party trick that he used to show off. He would set up a bunch of axes, he would string his bow, and then shoot an arrow through like 12 axes perfectly straight through them and hit a board. Neat party trick. I appreciate that. They need to know if Odysseus is dead or not. So Telemachus is just like, well, I could go to Sparta and ask Menelaus if he has any information on whether or not Odysseus is alive. The queen does not really support this idea. She doesn't want him leaving. She thinks that if he goes, he's not gonna come back alive. Fair worry that she has there. And so that later that night, we see our poor dog being abused by Antinous and Polybus. Actually, I think it's just Polybus and some other dude. These guys, the fact that they just kind of do whatever and are allowed to is just insane. She is the queen. She should have at least some amount of power over these men. That's the problem with patriarchies. Nobody listens to the queen once the man is gone. To be fair, nobody listened to the queen before, but still. Eumaeus gets hurt protecting the dog, and Polybus because Telemachus tries to step in to protect Eumaeus and the dog, and Polybus quickly just downs him. Queen Penelope exits her from behind her screen. She's like, please do not hurt my son. Antinous, who probably wasn't about to try to defuse the situation. He sees an opportunity to win some points in the queen's book by stepping in, trying to defuse the situation. So he takes it off, and he takes it outside and he puts it on a pile of dung. And he's just like, that is where the dog shall remain and stay. Don't like this man of Antinous. He is a horrible person, and unfortunately I think he is considered the front runner of all the suitors to take Penelope's hand should she choose to remarry. After this, Telemachus plans to sneak away to get info on his father, figure out where he is. So he goes and asks one of the servants to, everybody who she can trust, gather supplies, take them to a boat, and have Mentor and his crew meet him at the docks at dawn. And they will sail to Sparta. And now we see Odysseus I think this isn't the first time we see him, I don't believe. It might be. I don't think so, though. He's collecting wood on a beach. It's a very pretty beach. Could use a little bit more greenery, but still. There's a woman there. Not Athena, because the first time we see, the woman that we see when I say there's a woman there, it is Calypso. She's just kind of in the distance. She's walking towards Odysseus. But then we see Athena. She is, right there speaking to Odysseus. I had to look up who Calypso was in Greek mythos, because I didn't actually know her story. She is a nymph And she just wants to keep Odysseus for herself. She falls in love with him, and she offers him immortality and everything, and she's been feeding him lotus flowers to help him forget his pains and everything. But that night, this also might have been the first night that the first time that Athena has spoken to him. I'm not actually sure on that matter. He mentions to Calypso that Athena has spoken to him, and I think that might be the trigger for her to be like, okay, you need to remember shit, because the gods are now trying to influence you and everything, and they might come for me next. She might be worried about it. So she stops him from eating the lotus flower and tries to force him to remember how he got to her island. We start with Troy. They won the war, and here I say Agamemnon's armor doesn't look that bad, honestly. None of it does. The right-hand man, Eurylochus, asks about provisions, because Odysseus is not planning to follow Agamemnon home. He's like, we've followed him long enough. He's gonna go a different way to get home. Here's the other thing that I kind of question. Give me a moment. Okay, sorry. I needed to look up a map of ancient Greece to figure out where things were located so I could talk about this. I don't know why Odysseus decided to go a different direction than Agamemnon, because from Troy to get to Ithaca, which is where Odysseus is king, they'd have to go by Sparta, which is, I believe, where Agamemnon. He might have stopped somewhere else, but they're essentially going the same direction. Ithaca's just a little farther from Sparta. Okay? It's just like, it's, in my head, he's like going this really weird way. He should have, honestly, I know that none of this story would exist if he had followed Agamemnon home and we wouldn't get the story. It's just a weird decision to be like, yeah, we're gonna go this completely different way that we've never gone before, and we don't know what's out there to get home. When it's been 10 years since we've been home, we're not gonna take the short, fast way. Odysseus is kind of an idiot in that regard. He makes some really questionable decisions, in my opinion. This is one of them. This is the first of many. Well, this is what sets off all the rest of the decisions. Let's be real. There's no... Yeah, okay. He shouldn't have gone a different way, but we wouldn't have a story if he did. And they find land. It is just an island. I don't know. It's just them. They raid, they pillage, they burn the village down. They are They are violating Zeus's law in this case. I'm wondering if, like, in different parts of ancient Greece, they spoke different forms of Greek. Because this man is not speaking the same language as Odysseus and his crew. They have a translator who can understand. Good. That's good. But... also, why are they burning down this village? And he asks if they are the people from the sea. And they're like, no, we're just Greeks. Honestly, also at that point, my head is just like, are they in some completely different country? Are they so off course that they're in a completely different part of the world? Considering what the gods can do with it, it's very possible. My guess is they're closer to Turkey, or maybe, I don't know if Crete might speak a different form of Greek that is not what they're used to. So they plan for a 3-week landing party. They destroy the village, they become pirates, etc. And now so they've gotten provisions now from this island that they have pillaged and ruined and destroyed. So they're continuing on trying to get home, and they see another island, and it's been a while, I guess, and they need supplies. So they find a sheep on the landing party. I'd say it's 30-some people, maybe, probably more. There's 3 ships. Odysseus has the biggest one, then there's 2 smaller ones. Most of the time we only see the big one, and that does get we'll get to that in a moment. They get to this island, they climb up, they see one sheep, and one guy pulls an arrow, he's going, and he's like, what? Odysseus is like, wait, sheep travel in herds, let's follow it and we'll find the rest of the flock. It's a flock, not a herd. I guess it's kind of the same thing. Not super important, but still. They follow it into a cave. Another questionable decision on my part, why would you follow a sheep into a cave? Sheep don't naturally reside in caves. I think he would know that, considering one of his closest, most loyal servants is a sheep herder. I think he would know that sheep don't generally live in caves, unless they do in this part of the world, which I doubt, but who knows? How odd. But they follow it right into a cave. It's a dark cave, but it has cheese. Eurylochus is just like, we should go. We didn't bring anything to trade or barter with. And then Odysseus is just like, Zeus's law. They're supposed to take care of us. We are strangers in their land. And at this point, I'm like, I'm pretty sure Odysseus has a very warped version of whatever Zeus's law is supposed to be at this point, because the way he's acting about it is just like he is entitled to this treatment, which doesn't feel right, you know? But then the rest of the flock returns. Also, there's a lot of cheese. Apparently, it's good cheese too. I would start questioning because they see it's hanging really high up there. I'm like, and this is not like a normal sack, like a human sack of cheese. Probably wouldn't be that big things of cheese. They don't question it at all. They don't question anything that they're saying here. But then the rest of the flock returns with their shepherd, and it's a Cyclops. And we're gonna talk about Cyclops here, who was portrayed by Bill Irwin. The Cyclops is probably the weakest effect in this movie, in my opinion. It looks like it's wearing like a skin suit sort of thing, but it's very wrinkly in a way that it doesn't look like it's skin wrinkly. It looks like it's fabric to some extent. It doesn't look the best. Like, it's not bad. It's creepy, but I think that they could have done a little more work on, I don't know. I think the appearance of the Cyclops is the weakest thing for me in this movie. That and maybe one thing later on. Or maybe two things, but one of them is more of a personal thing than actual, like, a complaint. The face, I love the face, like, the eye kind of being angled, nose kind of twisted, because it's kind of messed up. The Cyclops has returned with his flock, and the cave is his home. And he shuts the door, which is just a giant rock that the men are not going to be able to move. No. So they're locked in for the night, and then it eats two of them. 2 men. We lose 2 men here, unfortunately. I don't know who the 2 men are, but 2 of them are dead. And then it falls asleep. And once it falls asleep, the men gather and they're about to kill it. And then they're just like, and then Odysseus is just like, wait, we can't open that door without this thing. We will be just trapped in here forever if we kill it now. And so they don't kill it. And they plan to rush the door in the morning once he lets the flock out. And here we have another questionable decision of Odysseus, in my opinion. Here's the thing. They know that the cave had been left open throughout the day from just being able to wander in, following that one sheep. They just have to wait till he's gone. I don't think he's gonna close the cave off during the day, but he might, knowing that they're in there. But I don't think he would. And they could just leave after, like, they know that he's gone and the door's still open. But that is also assuming that he is not planning on locking them in there. So they just plan to rush the door in the morning. And some people escape, but not everybody. Odysseus goes back in to be with the men that didn't make it out, to make sure that they can plan and get them out. And I'm pretty sure a couple more die here. I think one gets squished by a foot, one gets knocked against a wall, things like that. In the morning, nobody dies in that first rush. Then they plan, they're like, okay, so how many are in the flock? And they're like, a couple dozen. And they count how many men are still in there, and there's a few too many for whatever the plan is. So, like, okay, so we need a few people to rush the door and get out when he returns with his flock. And they're like, we need 2 to go. And somebody says, why not 4 or something? And they're just like, well, we don't want to lose more men than we absolutely have to. And somebody brings up a good point. He's probably going to eat 2 more of them because he ate 2 yesterday. He's going to want to eat 2 more before he goes to sleep tonight. Okay, sure. Some people attempt to run away. One out of 4 makes it out. This is where 2 of them get squished by a foot and 1 gets thrown against the wall. And 1 person escapes. He goes, I guess he might eat the 2 they squished or something. He goes back to sleep. They poke him in the eye with a large log that they have had kind of burning in the fire. So it is a hot log that they stab him in the eye with. And then they tie, like, grass or something to them. Not a lot. It's like just a bundle. That's barely. And they plan to sneak out with the herd in the morning. They're going to crawl out with them. It works. And then Odysseus makes a weird decision and decides to shoot it in, I don't know if it's the eye or just the face in general, with an arrow as they've escaped. Why? I don't know. That was a weird decision. He did not need to do that. They lose 2 more men because of this, at least. Odysseus is the reason his men keep dying. He should have just followed Agamemnon. They get back to the boat, but at least they lose at least 2 more men. And they also realize somebody's just like, that was Poseidon's son, because apparently he was calling out to Poseidon after they stabbed him in the eye last night. So yeah, now they've pissed off Poseidon, god of the sea, as they're on a boat. Great choices are being made here. Now we're back with Calypso. He doesn't really remember anything. And now we're back with Telemachus, and he's just like, they've arrived at Sparta, and he is talking to Mentor. She's like, I don't really know how to speak to a king. And they're led into the castle, and they are immediately led to meet Menelaus. Menelaus. They are led to meet Menelaus, who is feasting. It is apparently his daughter's wedding feast. Congratulations to his daughter. Woohoo! I love you, John Bernthal. Yep. We learn he is Agamemnon's brother and Helen's husband. And this is where, if you're an avid movie theater movie goer, at some point you probably saw this teaser trailer, which is John Bernthal, Menelaus, recounting the story of Troy from the inside of the horse. And this is the story from inside. How they were waiting for 3 days. They lost some men to drowning before they started, like, figuring out how to, like, help the men who are stuck in the... Yeah, that's probably... Weird choices were made. That one makes sense because it's they need it to be sitting there long enough that it's not just like, because they also had to send all the ships away and make it look like all their troops are gone. And now we are in the horse. The horse is getting taken into Troy. And we learned that how it gets stabbed a couple of times to make sure that there's nobody in there. And it does stab somebody in the shoulder. Somebody does get stabbed in the shoulder. Somebody else grabs the blade and, like, wipes off the blood. So when they pull out the sword, because they're looking to see if there's any blood on the sword when they're pulling it out and be like, there's something in there. They pull it out and it looks clean. Smart. Somebody freaks out there for a minute and almost ruins everything, but he gets held back and he's just like, he takes a breath and he's just like, okay, I'm good. Also, the fact that they're so quiet through all this, amazing. It probably reeks of everything in there. But they are now in Troy. And they wait till nightfall to kick open the belly of the horse. Which, thinking of how they plan to tie a rope to that so it landed just shy of hitting the ground and making any noise. Really impressive. Really brilliant. And then they start coming out. They kill some guards. They go down and they find where, like, the tents for the soldiers are, and they stock up on weapons there. They kill some more guards. They drop a lantern on the other side of the wall where Agamemnon and the rest of the troops are waiting. And now they have to go open the gates. But as they're running to open the gates, the Trojan soldiers are realizing, oh, hey, we've been infiltrated. There are people, our enemy is here. And they didn't tell Sinon that they were there. Heavy gates. The gates are very heavy to open. And we're building suspense, waiting to see if they'll get the gates open before all the Trojan soldiers within the city of Troy kill all those men before they don't. The gates get open. Agamemnon and his army flood the city. Menelaus is like, I think you know the rest of the story from there. And then Helen. He also says something like the face, jokingly, he's just like, the face that launched 1,000 ships. And then he turns her face. He's like, now maybe more like 500, because she's scarred on sight. She still looks gorgeous. But Helen speaks out, and she's like, so tell Telemachus about what happened to his brother upon returning home. We do hear about what happens to Agamemnon upon his return home, but not here, because Menelaus does not want to tell that story. It is not something he wants to recall. And we're back with Calypso and Odysseus in present time, essentially. And she's like, she keeps pushing him to remember what happened to him and his men and how he ended up where he is. And his men believe that he has pissed off Poseidon, and it's fair, because there's some rough seas now. And they land on a new island or shore, and it's like a snowy kind of forest, and there's a young girl, I think. And when she first sees them, she starts laughing, pointing and laughing. And then she starts screaming and she runs away into the forest. And then a bunch of giant people emerge. And they're all in, like, plate armor, silver or shiny. It's probably silver. Something akin to silver in terms of visual appearance. Plate armor. Like what you think of with, like, a knight in medieval times. Which feels weird, but it helps differentiate these people from other people that we meet throughout this journey. They never mention who these people are, what they are. They are a race of giants that are cannibals, apparently. They are, I think it's actually listed in here. Lestraganian. Yep. I'm not gonna try that one again. Also, the trees start moving on that island or beach, forest. That's really cool, because the trees start working for the giant people who are very violent. There are so many of these giant people, also so many of them. Trees moving. I like that shot because, like, you actually see they cage in some of the men, like forcing them to get killed by the giants. And Odysseus just like they start retreating back to their ships. It is a bloodbath. One ship makes it off that isle or off that beach. 1 out of 3. The other 2 are destroyed, and so many men are lost. So many men are lost there. My note here, they could have left more men with the ships, because I think everybody just disembarked from the ships on this landing, which made it harder for them to get back into the ships to escape, which was a dumb move, but whatever. Whatever. So now that they've lost so many men, Athena is disappointed. We see her just kind of show up and she's just like, just that disappointed mom look. They're just like, damn, that it's so effective though. When it's just like, oh, it's like, you're mad, but like, you're also just like so disappointed in us. It's just like, I'd rather you just be mad. Disappointment is much worse. But they need food. They didn't get any provisions from that landing. And so they're just like, well, we're just gonna like coast around this place, see if we find anywhere else to land and find provisions. And they see smoke from a cottage. And so instead of sending the entire ship on land, they take a small landing party of 10, 12 people, something like that, in a little rowboat. And they get to the beach and Eurylochus. And so the men are just like, because Odysseus is just like, we need somebody to stay behind with the small boat. So they can, if they see the men coming back, they can start getting ready to go. And Eurylochus and the other men are just like, we think you're the one that should stay behind because you're the one who's kind of been pissing off the gods and causing us all these problems. Odysseus is just like, is this a mutiny? And Eurylochus is just like, if that's the way it ends up playing out, then yeah, this is a mutiny. But Odysseus agrees to stay behind. He asks for a bow because he's like, either way, whether you come back with provisions or not, I'm gonna find us something to eat. So he goes off. He stays down by the beach, though, and he sees a deer, and so he plucks the bow to let it know, and he starts hunting it. Meanwhile, Eurylochus and the rest of the men who are on the landing party go up towards the cabin. As they go up, they pass a lion, a panther, a black panther, a jaguar, and a tiger. The giant cats, they're very pretty kitties. They're just there. They don't attack the men. They don't really do anything. They're just there. Well, we'll get into them in a moment. Then they make it up to the cottage. And they enter the cottage without the owner being there to let them in. They just walk in. I don't think that's how Zeus's law works. These men, it's probably been a while since they've been in civilized company. So they've probably lost a little bit of their manners and all that. Let's be real. But so you don't just walk into somebody's home especially if you don't know. The owner of the home returns, and she's freaking out because a bunch of men just walked into her house uninvited, and they're in armor with weapons and everything. So yeah, she's in her right to forget. There's also a crow in a cage, and it is Circe. The owner of the home is Circe, and she is a witch. I like Circe, and she does offer to feed them, but she says that they must leave their armor and weapons out back. And they do, because these men are starving. They just really want food, honestly. So they do. I think they notice that there's some old armor sitting out there, but they don't really question it. I think they're too hungry, and they're just like, yes, food, and so they're not going to question it. So she feeds them, and they can't stop eating the stew that she has made, and they eat, and they eat, and they eat, and then she starts changing them and molding them, and this is very body horror. This is probably the most disturbing scene in the entire movie. Yeah, there is a Cyclops that eats men. There are trees and a lot of death and everything there. This scene is the one that is just like, yeah, nope, no thank you. Very, very, very body horror. Very body horror. It's creepy. As she's feeding them, Odie shoots I kept referring to him as Odie in my notes. So if I say Odie, I do mean Odysseus. It was just easier to say Odie for time. Get my notes done. Odysseus, he shoots the deer. The men can't stop eating. Circe is reshaping them. Odysseus gets a kill shot into the deer. And when he goes to retrieve the body of the deer, it is a man. It is a naked man who is now dead. And Odysseus is just like, that's not normal. Something's wrong here. And so he runs back to the boat, and the other guy who was staying with it, always when I'm filming do I find spiders down here. Don't like spiders. Odysseus senses something not right about the sound, so he's run back to that boat. And the other man who was left there to watch the boat is just like, Eurylochus and the men also haven't returned, so Odysseus is just like, give me your dagger. And he starts going up, and he notices the lion. We don't really notice the other cat. So we know he sees them, but we only focus on the lion again. And he goes up, and Circe is there feeding a herd of pigs. These are Odysseus's men. They have been turned into pigs. Circe sees him coming, and she's just like, all right, well, come in, stranger. Leave your weapons at the door. choose a pig and we'll slaughter him for your meal. I don't think he actually chooses a pig. I think one just slips in with him. I don't think he was planning on actually choosing a pig to slaughter. He doesn't kill it, and she's just like, you're not a farmer, are you? Because how awkward he is about going to slaughter the pig. It's a good thing he doesn't. That probably would have ended even worse. And he notices that she's made stew, and he's just like, I see you've already made enough. We don't need to, I don't need to slaughter the pig. You have enough food here. Yes. Hi. I'm filming, sir. Should I let him in? And now Jojen's in here and he's gonna be yelling. I'm not sure how well you can hear him. I might turn up his meows so you can hear him. Odysseus has entered the cottage. He makes note of the pigs and he's observing his surroundings. He makes note of the crow. He makes note of the surroundings. He notices the crow in the cage. And I think he picks up on a few other little things. And he's a little suspicious. He's questioning Cersei a little bit. And she's just like, well, you're kind of rude for bringing in a dagger when I asked you to leave all your weapons at the door and everything. And so he puts it on the table. He still has not eaten the stew yet, which is good because I think that is the trigger for her spells to work is probably her stew. He is about to eat. The pigs are like slamming at the door. I'm guessing they've sort of retained their mental capacities to some extent. And like they know they're trying to warn him to not eat the stew. And I think the crow is because the crow's also making a bunch of noise and preventing him. So he does not end up eating the stew. Why did I just pull a chunk of fur from you? You're getting into it with your sister. He is about to, and then he asks if she's seen his men, and she says no, but he finds a ring that he pulled off of one of the men that died to the Cyclops, and he had given to Eurylochus to help honor him to some extent, because they had to leave that body behind. They were not able to bury it the way they wish the way they are supposed to honor their dead. He finds the ring, and at that moment, the pigs burst in. Cersei picks up the dagger, holds it to Odysseus' neck, and Odysseus reaches into the cage and is like almost a stranglehold on the crow, but he doesn't kill it. The pigs aren't really, they just burst in. They're not affecting this situation. Yes, you're very cute. You're very snuggly right now. We were gone for a long weekend. He's very happy to have us home. He missed us, and it doesn't help that his father is working from the office today instead of working from home. He is craving attention. I'm sorry. Cersei, I think she's just kind of anti-men. She might just be anti-people, but it seems like she's anti-men because she's just like, they were gonna hurt me, and Odysseus asks, did they hurt you? And she's like, no, but they were going to. And he's just like, they just wanted food and they just want to go home. They don't want anything to do with you, lady. Please just fix my men, turn them back into men instead of pigs. Let us leave with supplies and provisions, please. We also find out that the crow is her sister, and she's like, we get along better this way with her as a crow. Which, oof, they need some sibling therapy apparently. But she does reverse the transformation on his men. As she's saying this, she's just like, back into your disguises. I think she sees men as pigs to some extent, and that's why saying back into your disguises, she sees them in the form of man as being a disguise for the pig that she believes them to truly be. That's my interpretation of that wording. That could be wrong, but I like that theory. It's probably true. But once they're transformed back and they're reclothed, because when they transform, they're naked once the transformation ends. Now that they're back into men, they're reclothed. Odysseus is just like, take all the supplies, the provisions that you can, but leave the meat. Because I think the meat is the thing that triggers the curse or whatever that causes the eating to keep going. It might be something else, but the men leave with supplies, but Odysseus sticks behind, and Eurylochus, I'm pretty sure I'm saying it right. Eurylochus is just like, you're really gonna let her live, even though she's a witch? Because her eyes have been sharpened by the gods. She says that earlier on. He asks for advice on how to get home, and he's just like, you can give us this information. You can help us get home. And she tells them that the only way to get the information that you need to get home is to go to hell, to sail into hell, into Hades' realm. Odysseus is just like, nobody's ever done that. And she's just like, well, you're going to. So you need to go there where the sea of fire meets a sea of ice. Essentially where, I guess a volcano lava flow meets, the ocean or something like that. They go there, and she says you'll need to you'll dig a trench and fill it with sacrificial blood. They take 2 sheep to provide the sacrificial blood, and the dead rise. The dead rise. There are so many dead bodies that rise. They're there to meet a blind, I don't want to say prophet, but like prophet? That also doesn't quite sound right. Something, he has prophecies, he sort of sees the future, I think. But they're there to learn some things. They're there to speak to the shades. The first shade that they speak to is Sinon. This is the most screen time that Elliot Page gets, and I think he does wonderfully in this scene. And he's just like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you trust me with the truth? Let's be real, the lies and everything, because he had to believe everything that he was saying. If he had known that Odysseus and his men were in the horse, I don't think anything that he said would have come across as honest. Not honest, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not honest, but it's similar to that. I can't remember the actual word. The problem with knowing a lot of words is you forget some words. The dead must drink the blood so I can actually speak. We find out that he is kind of upset and he wants to have Antinous have his shame returned to him by having Odysseus return the stick that was drawn to Antinous. He also finds out that Sinon also finds out his dad is dead because he mites his dad as a shade. And Agamemnon! And this is where we learn what happened to Agamemnon for him to die. He returned home, and he thought it was going to be to praise and joyous times and everything. His wife had taken a lover, and she was still a little irked at him, a little pissed off about him sacrificing their daughter for good weather, which fair. She has every right to be upset about him sacrificing their daughter for weather. They get him all cleaned up, they bathe him, they anoint him in oils, they make him all soft, and she gets him into bed, and then she stabs him and kills him. Maybe don't sacrifice your daughter for the weather if you're about to go off to war and expect a nice homecoming from your wife. You know? And so Agamemnon tells Odysseus, just like, don't expect praise and glory coming home. Sneak in and assess the situation before revealing that you have returned. And then the blind prophet, I am calling him a prophet. I can't remember what his name is. I'm not going to look it up because I will spend too much time trying to figure out who he was. He tells Odysseus, what I have to tell you is only for your ears, not your men. So the men head back to the ship. Start heading back to the ship. Though he does start telling Odysseus the prophecy as his men are still within earshot, so okay. You're just like, okay, so what's gonna happen? To get home, you will go past the sirens where you're all gonna die because of the siren song, and Odysseus, you're like, well, I'll just plug my men's ears with wax, and they won't hear it and we'll be fine. And he's like, okay, well, if you make it past that, then you kind of have a choice. You can either fall through into this giant whirlpool, this monstrous whirlpool where everybody dies, or you go through this canyon of the sea monster Scylla. If you go through the whirlpool, everybody dies. If you go past the sea monster, you only lose 6 men. And if you do that, then you're going to end up landing on the island where the sun god Apollo grazes his cattle herd, and your men will slaughter them all and piss off Zeus, and they're all gonna die. You'll be fine because you have listened to my advice, and you won't be subjected to Zeus's anger. But all your men are gonna die. You're the only one that's gonna make it home, and Odysseus doesn't like that. Doesn't like learning that. He's like, well, I will do everything in my power to stop this. I will get my men home. And then the dead kind of get angry. I'm not sure why. They're dead. They're angry. Some of them are angry because they died because of some Odysseus. They start chasing them back to the boats. And Odysseus has been there long enough that he should have a decent chunk of space to catch up to his men. He's there pretty quick. He either runs really fast or his men are going really slow. But they all make it back to the ship. I don't think anybody gets left behind here. They ride out of hell or the underworld or whatever this place is. And they're on their way. Odysseus is still trying to remember. And then Calypso gives him a lotus so he can go to sleep that night. And he's just like, but I thought you wanted me to remember, because he now knows that the lotus is part of what has been making him forget everything. And she's like, just take it so you can get some sleep tonight. You need a good night's sleep. Back at Ithaca, Antinous forces his way into the queen's chambers, because she kind of lives behind the screen, and I think it's some kind of medieval thing. It's cool, honestly. He's just like, look, it's been so long, and Odysseus is probably dead. You need to remarry, and I know I'm the best choice. And as the queen, she sends her servant girl away, who is played by Mia Goth. It is Oh, this one I can look up. Melantho. Melantho is sent away. Antinous and Queen Penelope can have their talk. And this scene is shot from the backside of her weaving. So we're seeing like through threads. And what's interesting with this shot is Anne Hathaway, Queen Penelope, is like she's not perfectly in focus since we're seeing through kind of a veil, but we can more clearly see her than we can see Antinous, Robert Pattinson. He is very kind of faded here, very hidden up behind the veil and everything. And I'm like, my thought is this is signifying who has more power, who has more staying power here. He is being, because remember, this is a burial shroud that she is weaving. He is shrouded. She is not, to some extent, in a way here. I just thought it was really interesting that he's more blurred in the scene than she is. It's really interesting. And that she's just like, you know what? Maybe I will finally choose a suitor and everything. And he's just like, great. And she asks, and what about my son? And she's like, he is heir, he will be king. Unless we have a child of our own. And she doesn't like that line. That's when she knows. She's like, okay, I see. Yeah, no. My son, my Telemachus, will be king. Not whatever. Like, if he gets put in power, he needs to become king before she would have a child with one of the suitors. And I think she knows that. She doesn't like that. And Antinous tells Queen Penelope that he loves her. He really just wants the throne, let's be real here. Then once he leaves, he goes to Melantho. And they kind of, it's not quite a makeout session, but they're getting it on a little bit. He's definitely sleeping with her. She has definitely betrayed the queen. Ooh, little bitch. I think the queen kind of picks up on this, though. Because she is also the one to tell Antinous where Telemachus really is. Because the queen tells Antinous that Telemachus is just visiting his grandfather. More inland. But Melantho is just like, she's lying. He's really gone to Sparta to speak with Menelaus, little traitor. So now Antinous and Polybus are planning to murder Telemachus upon his return. They have to do it in a way where it doesn't look like they did it. It's a whole thing. And he says, bring me his nose. And Polybus is just like, would you recognize him by just his nose? And then Antinous is just like, and his ears. It's just like, why not just the whole head? I mean, yeah, the nose and the ears are probably like more easy to like conceal, so like you're not carrying around a head and somebody won't find the head. Still weird. Now we're back with Telemachus and Menelaus, and they are shooting pigeons as they talk about what to do, and the fact that Telemachus needs to go take the throne and get the suitors out of his mother's palace, out of his palace. He must evict the suitors without violating Zeus's law, though. There's that. Odysseus, now back with him, he is still collecting pieces of wood, which are pieces of his ship that is in pieces, clearly. Now we learn that we're going through the sirens. He wants to hear the siren song, but he has all of his men put wax in their ears to prevent them from hearing. But he asks to be tied to the center mast and not untied or released for no matter what he says. And Eurylochus, he's not sure about this idea, but he goes along with it. Everybody puts wax in their ears, and they sail past the sirens on the rock. And I wish we had gotten a better look at the sirens. I wish we had got to hear the song, because we don't get to hear the song. Once Eurylochus puts in his wax, the sound changes and we're not really hearing anything. Really cool, but but we at some point we switched to where we're hearing Odysseus scream and everything, and I'm like, well, why couldn't we switch so we're now hearing what he's hearing? I would love to hear what the siren song is supposed to be. We don't. One man does take out the wax and does jump into the ocean and go toward the sirens, killing himself in the process, or well, he will end up dead because the sirens will destroy him. But I wish we had been able to see the sirens better. They look like very pretty women on rocks, and I'd love to see that. I love a pretty woman. But they only lose one man, so that's good. That's great. They make it. And now we're at the whirlpool. And Odysseus is just kind of sitting there. He does recount to Eurylochus what the siren song sounded like, and all the promises that he was not able to keep, and everything that he wants, and all sorts of things. And there's now the giant whirlpool ahead. And his plan is Odysseus actually, I think his plan could work. Sail into one side and then blast the sail and like shoot out the other side. And I know that this is a tactic. I think sailors have used this. I'm not sure if it actually is a thing that does function, but I've seen this done in at least another movie or a TV show before. There must be some reality-based logic there. Eurylochus doesn't think that that's the right idea, and he sees the canyon. He's like, we'll just go that way. And Odysseus is just like, it's too narrow, we won't make it. And Eurylochus ends up choosing to do that anyway, going towards the canyon. And Odysseus is just like, all right, fine, whatever. And so they make it into the canyon. They break some oars along the way and kind of scrape up against some rocks, and their boat is now leaking. But they make it into the canyon, and it's so peaceful. It's so nice. And then giant tentacles come down and start taking men. I don't know if we lose 6 exactly, because that was the number that the prophecy notated would be lost should they go the route of the sea monster Scylla. We just see the tentacle. I was so excited to see Scylla, because Scylla's in Hades too. I love her. She's a great character in that. I was really excited to see her. And we don't really get to see what the sea monster looks like. We just see tentacles and everything, and that disappointed me. I wanted to see more Scylla here. I think they could have done more, and she also lives, up in a cave. I thought she was a sea monster, not a cave cliff monster. Whatever. They only take 6. And Eurylochus ends up noticing that Odysseus might have known this was going to happen, and he gets mad at him, and it's just like, well, it was either we lose some men here or we all die in the whirlpool. And so Eurylochus, he's kind of annoyed, but he's just like, he doesn't really know how to deal with this situation. I don't think anybody knows how to deal with this situation, to be honest. And now they come across an island, and they are fully, I think they're really low on provisions or something, and they want to make land and, set up camp and everything on the Sun God's Isle. And they see cattle there, and Odysseus is just like, you're all gonna die. He lets them know what's gonna happen. He's just like, what? If we land there, you're all gonna die, because you're gonna end up slaughtering the sun god's herd, and you're gonna piss off Zeus. Eurylochus is just like, you know what? Let's land there, but we'll promise not to slaughter the cattle or any meat. We'll just set up camp, gather fruit, berries, and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll leave. So the wind takes them right up, and it's very easy for them to shore up. And then the wind doesn't change. And they're like, well, we'll leave when the wind changes. And the wind does not change. And they're there for so long that they run out of their own provisions. One night, the men all slip away while Odysseus is asleep. I don't know how many of the cattle they've murdered, but they have murdered at least some of the sun god's cattle. And Odysseus is not happy. He's just like, so you thought if you ate quietly, the sun god wouldn't notice the cattle was being eaten? You're all gonna die. Athena shows up, and she's just like, despite everybody telling you that you are the only one to make it home, you're still doing everything in your power to defy the gods. And he's just like, if I can get my men home, I've done the right thing. And something. But hey, guess what? The wind's finally changed. They can finally get off the island. And they do get off the island, and then Zeus, big storm. The men are fighting to stay on the ship and keep it together, and the boat splits in half, essentially, with Odysseus on one side and all of his men on the other. The men all die. We don't actually see it happen, but it's obvious that they all die, because they would have probably washed up with Odysseus on Calypso's island, but they don't. You're a terrible hunter, Kitty. There's a bug, and she's just happily watching it. Not trying to kill it. She sniffed it, and that was it. She doesn't even poke at it. As the massive storm is happening, one of the ship men, it might be Eurylochus, starts saying, pray to Poseidon, pray for forgiveness, because that is one of the gods that they pissed off early on in this journey. He's alone on Calypso's island with the nymph. She heals him, but the pain of the mind, that's why she started giving him the lotus flower, so he could more easily heal to some extent. He's been there 7 years. It's been 7 years. Calypso gives him back the pin. He still had it when the boat crashed, and he had been holding onto it, screaming, occasionally calling out Athena, but also calling out another name, Penelope. She tells him what he must do to get home. He must give himself to Poseidon, as in, he cannot control what happens. He builds a raft, and he just gets on it and lets Poseidon exact his punishment to some extent. But Zeus won't let Poseidon kill Odysseus. They know this. He builds his raft, and he goes. He gets on it, and he just goes, and it's not a smooth passage. He ends up washing up on a beach, but he washes up on his home beach. He does make it home. After 20 years at sea, Odysseus has made it home. He does not look anything like he did, and he's missing a shirt. He just kind of wraps it. He looks like a beggar now, which is to his advantage in this situation. As he's there, the suitors arrive at the swineherder's home. This is Eumaeus's home. They take his pigs, and they kill his sheep dogs, his warning dogs, his dogs. Telemachus is preparing to leave Sparta. Helen apologizes, says she's sorry for everything. Menelaus is just like, I'm sorry I didn't have any news about your father. And Telemachus is just like, no, what you gave me is great. Now, Odysseus has arrived at Eumaeus' home. He asks where his guard dogs are, and Eumaeus is just like, I'm burning them. Dogs are dead, and Eumaeus tells... How does this... He says something that sets Eumaeus off, and he kind of has, a breakdown. Because Odysseus mentions Odysseus, but he's not saying he is Odysseus, even though he is Odysseus. He ends up pretending to be Sinon. It's been 20 years, I guess. Eumaeus is essentially fully blind. Not completely blind, but almost there. So he can't really see and know that actually is Odysseus and not Sinon. Also, it's been 20 years, and Sinon was a boy, so that could be what Sinon looked like when he grows up, for all we know. Why not? Eumaeus kind of has a freak out in a moment, and then he tells Odysseus that Telemachus is in danger, that the suitors have hired bandits to attack him at the temple. Odysseus is just like, well, I gotta stop that, so he gathers supplies, and he's just like, I just gotta go. And he's just like, Eumaeus is just like, you're not gonna make it there before the bandits. He's like, I don't need to make it there before the bandits. I need to make it there before Telemachus gets there, so I can warn him. He does get there before Telemachus gets there. I think Telemachus and Mentor's plan was to get to the temple and sneak in through there. They should have just come straight home. It would have been less sketchy, I guess. Yeah. Odysseus is preparing to is hiding as a beggar there, and he sees Telemachus come. He's just like, I have a message from Eumaeus. And, Telemachus is like, find that beggar, bring him to me, because he wants to hear the message. Telemachus is led to one of the chambers where there's a statue of, I'm assuming it's the goddess Athena here, and he and Mentor are given cups of wine. And then Odysseus is brought in, and the priests are like, get this beggar out of here, and Telemachus is like, he has a message for me. And Mentor has started drinking the wine, but Telemachus hasn't had a drink of it. And Mentor kind of collapses due to poison. He has been poisoned from the wine. The rest of Telemachus' guard has been murdered, and they're about to try to kill Telemachus, and Odysseus steps in and destroys everybody. One-man army there. To be fair, I don't think these men were super prepared. And Telemachus is just like, we need to take his body, we have to honor. And Odysseus is just like, we don't have time, we have to get out of here. We can't let them know. If we take the body with us, it's too obvious. Once this is all over, we will ride into the unknown west and honor all these men. Right now, we'll honor him in fire. And they burn him, and a fire starts going, and everybody starts freaking out because they see this room, flames bursting out of it. Odysseus and Telemachus sneak out after putting on priest robes, so they kind of blend in more. And they get out, and he once again he's playing up that he is Sinon, not Odysseus. And he says, like, your father is close by, he tells Telemachus, and it's just like, yeah, he's like 2 feet from you. To be fair, there's no way that Telemachus is going to recognize this man as father. He was at best 2 when Odysseus went off to war. The servant girl's sus. Yeah, Melantho, she runs over to Antinous as Telemachus is arriving, and she's telling Antinous, Telemachus is back, and the queen is coming out from where she stays behind a screen, and she sees that Melantho is saying something to this boy, to the suitor, and she's like, But then Telemachus arrives back home, dressed up all princely and everything, and he's just like, we will have a feast tonight, if there's anything left to feast upon. Looking over at Antinous and noting, like, yeah, they've been here for how many years, like, running as dry from all the feasting that they do. But Queen Penelope is just like, oh, don't worry. My suitors will come and shower us in gifts and everything because you have returned. That night, before that, Telemachus and Penelope and he's just like, you need to remarry. And she's just like, I do not want to remarry. I want my husband back. But they do have a feast that night to honor Telemachus' return. The dog is still alive. Argus, the dog, hunting dog, still alive, still laying on a dung heap. He must recognize Odysseus, because once Odysseus goes over and acknowledges Argus, the dog takes his final breath. Yes, the dog dies in this movie, unfortunately. And this is kind of when Telemachus realizes that this beggar who's been posing as Sinon is his father. Odysseus is just like, take him up and bury him on the cliffs. And Telemachus is just like, where you first met? And Odysseus never fully acknowledges that he is Odysseus still yet. he wants to keep this quiet. He doesn't want to affect anything yet. Telemachus offers him to come sit with him and be fed, and Odysseus is like, no, I'll just beg. I'll do the rounds. And he goes around, and he knows who's the one. He figures out who's the one running the show of the suitors, and it's Antinous. And he goes over and he asks Polybus for food. And then Antinous is just like, well, you're probably gonna ask me for something next, right? And he's just like, no, but I have something for you. And he gives Antinous back his lot, the little stick thing. And he's just like, where'd you get this? Odysseus is just like, Sinon, and there's a whole thing about that. And then Antinous attacks Odysseus. He doesn't know it's Odysseus, but he still attacks. Somebody's just like, you're breaking Zeus's law here. What if that is a god in disguise? And he's just like, are you god in disguise? Antinous asks Odysseus, are you a god in disguise? And Odysseus is just like, no. And they start getting into a fight, and Telemachus just like, that's enough, everybody get out. Melantho tells Odysseus, they all still think he's just a beggar, they don't know he's Odysseus. She's just like, the queen would like to speak with you. Wait till the fires are lit and everyone has left, or something like that, and you may speak with her. And so the fires get lit, and he is led to sit by the queen's screen and talk with her. And Penelope asks one of the servant women to wash his feet, and he's just like, you don't have to do that. And she's just like, this is what my husband would have wanted. This is how he wanted us to treat people and everything. And so the woman goes to start washing his feet, and she is the one that stitched up his leg from that scar, causing that scar. She recognizes the scar. She knows he's Odysseus, and he's just like, no, we're keeping this quiet. You're not going to let anybody know. And she's like, okay. And Antinous and Polybus come in, and I think they're planning on murdering Telemachus here in front of the queen, and all these, like, it's not even subtle at this point. It would have just been like plain, like, straight day murder. It's just like, excuse me? No, you're not even gonna try for subtlety now? But the queen starts talking and asking about what happened, and we'll see more of what happened in Troy, and how Odysseus believes he is the reason Zeus's law is collapsing and society is collapsing and everything. And he admits he is the people from the sea, and why Zeus's law is kind of just non-existent anymore. More of Troy, fires and violence and whatnot. He believes that he is the reason that Zeus's law was originally broken, because of the horse and posing it as a gift when it really wasn't, and how that ruined everything. The queen, having heard all this and everything, comes up with a plan finally. She has all the weapons from the hall to be removed, and there will be all the doors will be locked, and there will be a trial for the suitors to win her hand. So that night, because this will happen at dawn. So that night, all the weapons are removed. They're taken to a storage room upstairs in the palace. Axes are set up in the hall, and at dawn, all the suitors arrive. The doors are locked. The beggars are also in there too. Why not? The trial Queen Penelope poses for these suitors. She brings out Odysseus' bow, the one that she had Telemachus attempt to try to string earlier on, that he failed to do so. And the one that only Odysseus is able to string. And she says, whoever can string this bow and shoot an arrow through these axes shall be my new husband. And so the men begin to try to string the bow. And failure after failure after failure, one by one the men fall. Not really fall, but like fail. And it gets to Antinous' attempt, and he's just like, I'm not even gonna try. I know this is not worth it. Nobody but Odysseus can do this. Nobody can replace him. And then Odysseus, still posing as a beggar, just like, I would like a try. And all the suitors start laughing, but Eumaeus is just like, he has the right to give it a shot. And he plays it up at first that he can't really do it, but then he strings that bow, and he plucks that string, making it ring out. It's a beautiful sound. And he shoots that arrow, and that is the moment that Queen Penelope realizes that is her husband. That is Odysseus. And then he starts murdering all the suitors, because he has a weapon and they don't. Because he had mentioned to Telemachus, just like, don't worry, your mother will make sure I have a weapon. Your mother will take care of that. And she's like, yeah, in a way she did. I mean, arguably, these guys could start pulling off those axes from the ground. They're heavy axes and they're tied together, so they do start doing this and they do use them as weapons, but that's not the main weapon that is used throughout. Once Odysseus starts murdering people, the queen and her servants run to safety behind her screen, and Melantho tries to get in there, and the queen is just like, honey, your place is out there. She knows that Melantho has been cheating her, has been disloyal to her and her master. And they have Antinous, who is cowering behind a pillar as Odysseus is murdering men left and right. He is avoiding fighting. I think he's just a coward. And he finds the one servant he wears spurs. This is mentioned earlier that he is far too loud because Eumaeus, he might be blind, but he has great hearing. He's just like, too loud. You don't need to wear your spurs inside. And this guy is wearing his spurs still, and he knows where the weapons are being kept. And he gets locked in that room by Eumaeus, which could have worked out, except that he starts taking an axe to the floor and creating a hole in the ground to send weapons down to where the fighting is happening. And he does. Telemachus notices this and does run up there and to start fighting him. So there's that. Weapons still get sent down, some swords, some shields, some spears. I guess at some point maybe a bow and arrows. Telemachus gets stabbed by this guy, but he does end up killing the guy and winning that fight. And as it looks bad for Odysseus, he is surrounded and he has been stabbed, and he has like 2 arrows sticking out of his back and a spear sticking out of his front. He kind of looks like human. It's not quite human concussion. There's only 3 things, but still, he's surrounded by people and he only has like a shield, I think, or maybe the bow. No arrows. Telemachus drops a sword right into his hand. As this is happening, as the fighting has been going on, some of the suitors have dropped to a knee and surrendered, I guess. They're just like, we are now we are loyal to you. You are our king. Polybus, I think, was one of the first people killed. Arrow right to the neck. So he was gone. Antinous has been around. He's been cowering, and now he's come out to fight. He doesn't really put up a fight. Odysseus takes him down pretty quickly. Though he does stab, Antinous does stab Odysseus in the neck, but Odysseus then shoves his lot and is just like, I am returning you. You can have your shame back. And then he kills Antinous, and everybody takes a knee. Eumaeus is just like, did he win? Is he alive? Because he can't see. He doesn't know. Telemachus drops to his knee. Everybody follows in suit. And Odysseus starts moving towards where Queen Penelope is, and Telemachus starts by thumping his sword on the ground. I guess this is some kind of acknowledgement of this is the king sort of a moment. And he goes, and Penelope is just like, you can't die now. He's just like, I'm not gonna die. Exile though. We're gonna go west. Telemachus is gonna be king, and Odysseus and Penelope do sail west. And Odysseus does, to prove that he is Odysseus, he also does present Penelope with her pin back. And that is the Odyssey, as well as I can recount through my notes and my memory. This was a long one. This was an amazing movie, though. I don't think anything else will beat it out for Best Picture. I think Project Hail Mary could have a chance, but it's highly unlikely. But I'm not gonna be mad at Project. I also haven't seen Digger yet, which is by the same director that did The Revenant. It's, depending on how good that is, which I expect it to be really good. It's Tom Cruise. I do love Tom Cruise despite all of the Scientology. I am able to push past the Scientology stuff for Tom Cruise. It looks like a really interesting movie. I finally got a preview for that movie that gave me more information about what it's about, and it looks really like my kind of movie. So, very excited for that. But I think Odyssey is our shoo-in for Best Picture next year. What do you guys think? Have you guys seen this movie? What format did you watch it in? Are you waiting to see it in 70mm IMAX because you had to get tickets so many weeks out because they sold out like that? I bought my husband and I, we got our tickets for this like last year. We planned our vacation around this movie. We knew this is what we were going to be doing. Loved it. Fabulous movie. Very excited for the future of movies. I'm excited for the next Nolan movie. I also love the fact that this is the first movie shot fully on IMAX cameras. So that's fun. So what do you think of this movie? Let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in my next review. Bye!